So good day. Today we've got the final lecture in the program which is connected with media art of this year Festival of Linoleum. So I do remind you that the topic of the festival is to become a human, and during the previous lectures in this or that way we touched this topic, we considered it in the art practices, in particular in the media art. So together with us today is the lecturer Ksenia Malykh, who is the head of the research platform of Pinchuk Arts Center and also the curator of lots of projects in visual art and educational programs. Because of pandemics, lots of exhibition formats ceased existing in the way we got used to. People don't go to the art centers, the galleries, and lots of exhibitions began to try to find their new reflections in online formats. Thus, Ukraine has the online platform with the name of SHUKHLIADA. So today, Ksenia Malykh will tell us about the stable and innovative approaches in the online formats and will tell about the project of SHUKHLIADA. I do remind you that you can leave your questions in the comments, and in the end of the lecture I will pose them for our guest and lecturer. Thank you, Ksenia. The floor is yours. Thank you, Katya. So today we will speak about such a type of activity, museum activity like online exhibitions and other online projects, and I will tell you about different types, different experience of the international institutions and online as well, which exist online only, and also about the Ukrainian experience. I'd like to begin with the fact that, of course, the need of online exhibitions and online formats for the museums emerged before the pandemics, much earlier. And this turn of the museum marketing towards the viewer took place much earlier, because at some moment of time the museums decided to stop being just a storage with dust and something boring, and they decided to work with their collections and content and to speak with their viewers and spectators with a contemporary language and to become attractive for them, to offer not just to view the collection or to view the exposition, but they decided to suggest some new viewer's experience. And this was the turn in the museum's life, which was the beginning for all of the experiments with the online format. And now, during the pandemics, this progress has sped up because of the circumstances, and all of the museums of the world were suddenly forced to reformat themselves, and rather quickly and efficiently to go online. And we witnessed how much content emerged. It was the super content boom. Numerous streams, endless online exhibitions and lectures, online discussions, and even now we've got the scientific conferences held online. And of course, this has both advantages and drawbacks, and we will consider that now. I will not delve deep into each of the formats, but I will show you the best examples, and I will explain how they are working. What is rather useful for the viewer is in that, and for the art itself, for the institutions. So first of all, what comes to my mind as a platform for the virtual or online art and cultural projects is Google Arts and Culture, of course. It has been constructed and created and began its work long before the pandemic. And this platform is giving the opportunity to create the most exhaustive formats, the exhaustive exhibitions, which totally cover terabytes of info about the artist. And I'm not sure that this is the most attractive view type for the spectator, but for the researchers it is definitely the most convenient, as the platform itself, Google Arts and Culture, is cooperating with more than 2,000 museums all over the world. Not only museums, but also the archives. So That is the attractive format where you can, without leaving your house, you can visit the biggest museums of the world. You could view the details of the masterpieces of the world art, and it, of course, is working here. This platform has also exhibitions conducted as well, and as the example of the exhibition, Faces of Frida, which you could see as an opening here at the screen, I'd like to show how they create their online products. First of all, this exhibition is created in collaboration with more than 30 collections. Here we've represented the logos of the main ones, the most famous ones, but there are 33 of them. Would it be possible to create such a high volume and detailed and all-grasping exhibition devoted to the artist Frida Kahlo is a huge issue and question, because besides a huge budget which is needed for that, which is rather obvious, besides that some of the works and some of the archive documents presented at this exhibition, they just couldn't be moved, they couldn't be transported. Their state is deteriorating that much that they cannot be physically transported, and the people who are responsible for its storage just don't give the permit to move them. So this exhibition would be a priori impossible in physical life. So definitely we, considering the online projects, will come back to the question whether we can replace the physical experience with this, the physical experience of the art perception, the scale. When, for instance, when the viewer is watching a kind of a monumental, huge piece of work and feels within the scale, as he or she is such a little one in front of it, can we replace it with the online experience, even VR plus something else? So here, of course, this exhibition does not suggest the physical contact with the art, but still it suggests, in spite of that, and lots of materials. First of all, it represents more than 800 of works of these artists. Besides the works, we also have the archive materials. Those are the pictures, the photos of the artist, her private and family archive, the fragments of her letters, and parts of her diaries, her sketches, her drawings, and with the help of the embedded Google Street View, it's totally possible to gain experience of physical presence in some important places and locations for Frida Kahlo, which, when closer and in a more convenient way, you can feel some details connected with her life. So what's the structure of such a full-scale exhibition? Because in fact it's just a huge website with a big amount of info. How is it given and approached to? First of all, it is all divided into sections, and it is divided by topics. We are considering now the section which has the name of the real Frida, and this section offers the materials of various perspectives onto her life, the significance of her personality, and the views from totally different experts. Here, there were lots of institutions involved, which study, for instance, botanical garden, which studies the plant world in the works of Frida Kahlo. And also, we have the chapter which is devoted to the work in focus, where you can look through all of the details, and significance of these details is explained as well. There are editorial selections of the texts about Frida Kahlo, about the topics affiliated with her art, how her art impacted some of the artists, and the art itself. So all of this website is structured rather precisely in a way that you can take this travel and construct it for different audiences. From the perspective of the museum marketing, it's incredibly important, as in spite of your level of training when you came to this website, whether you are the historian of art or a researcher and a professional or a just amateur and just interested in art, you will find the content for everyone. There is an opportunity here from any moment either to come to a different topic or to delve deeper into this one. So this is an example. Well, we may name it a long read, very huge, with a huge volume, long read, with lots of additional info, with a very high quality illustrations. So here you can see again the chapters, which can tell about her biography through the art with her separate parts. They're rather optimistic and life-approving topics like pain, death, identity, and memories. And also, well, of course, one of the very important and highly authoritative platforms for the researchers and those who are interested in art is the Museum of MoMA. They're rather active as well in their online activities. They have the whole chapter at the website, which has the name of Virtual Views. And those are not exhibitions only, though the exhibitions in particular as well. They've got separate exhibitions of the works and showings. There are certain online information found there. Some works in the focus from their collection. Well, of course, they're working with the online collection as well. Besides that, there are the voices of the artists in the video format where they tell or share or expand the context of this or that work. Also, they've got the streams of the curators on this or that topic. For instance, out of the closest and next events on the 10th of September, at this chapter of the website, there will be the online presentation of the Japanese artist work, which is the immersive multi-sensor installation, which has been developed in 1969, and it will be shown here online. There, the team of MoMA is creating activities online once a fortnight. The next one, on the 24th of September, is the event, an online discussion with the topic of the important female artists of surrealism. So as you can see, there is a very broad spectrum of online events, and they go on with their activities where they go on with the principles of their offline activities, which is expanding onto online as well. Here you can see the chapter where they announce certain event and where they store in the archive the past events. And also, before we come to the topic of online fairs, I'd like to tell you that for us not to be lost in the structure of those online projects, what we just saw was mostly online exhibitions. Sometimes there can be exhibitions. There is such a notion of cultural tech washing, so the technical washing of the culture, when the project which exists in the physical reality is adjusted in the way it's adapted and tries to be integrated into the digital reality. This project does not have any negative connotation. This is the process which cannot be either good or bad. Here, when we consider online fairs further on, it seems to me a very comprehensive illustration for this notion. I do advise you to read the article of Vitaly Yankovoi about this notion. It's on the article which considers online exhibitions, and the latest one in SHUKHLIADA, which has the name of We Lost Control Again. And now we're coming to a very bright example of tech washing, the cultural one, which is Dallas Art Fair. Why do I begin with this fair exactly? Well, because it has been planned for the very beginning of the lockdown, so they are the first victim of pandemic. As all of the galleries and the fair process really needs a serious management, because it's the platform which receives lots of smaller galleries, and they need to plan everything beforehand, to edit everything, and of course to set up everything. The galleries pay huge rent. They need to invest into the production of the works, into the insurance of those works, and also into the transport, and for sure into the promotion and the rent of the premises. That is why you can imagine the situation. One of the biggest fairs, Dallas Art Fair, get to know that everything has been paid for, everyone is packing the luggage to go to their fair, but everything is locked. So they found the situation rather useful and created the fair online, though they were not the first. Art Basel Hong Kong were the first to create the first online fair, and Dallas at Fair did it in the same way. And also, now we've got the first VR online art fair, which has the name of Untitled Art Online. This is the brightest example of tech washing, as they have created VR Tour as a kind of a platform where you can find the gallery boxes. The art fair, of course, looks like this, but everything is in the virtual space. They've got the numbers of the boxes, as you can see here. And we're considering now the box of the Ukrainian gallery Voloshin, who presented the work of Lesia Khomenko, Vlada Ralko there, Nikita Kodan, and also other artists. And this is how it looked like. They even managed, at Dallas Art Fair, they even managed to sell several works online. So all of this experience of online sales now, if we analyze it, well, of course, it's not new at all. It used to take place before. There are platforms for online sales of the works, but still, according to the statistical data, as the gallerists who are selling the works witness, the customers, the clients, would rather buy a work online of the artist whom they have already seen personally, whose works, I mean. It's rather important, this experience of physical presence closer to the work. It's very important for the segment which deals with the commercial activities, that is sales of the artworks. But even before pandemics, the market showed the figures that online sales were growing. But what is important, the online sales are growing in a certain price segment. The sales are growing within 1,000 or 2,000 euro a work. The works which cost more than 5,000 euro a work are seldom sold online, and mostly the customer has the previous physical experience of interaction with this or that work. And also, when we speak about the activities, the cultural activities and exhibition activities, of course, we will be speaking about e-flux, because it's one of the most influential resources, information resources, first of all, for the professional and expert art field. And that is why there we can also have certain online activities. It is an online platform itself, which is famous with its own emailing and newsletters. This is the rare occasion when almost all of the workers of the cultural sphere read the newsletter from e-flux. I'd like to share a project with you which took place in summer, since June to August, which has the name of War and Cinema. This is a kind of a curators and curated screening of the video works. And this selection was curated by Oleksiy, who created the selection of the video works of Ukrainian artists, which are affiliated with the topic of war. And the curator's text at this website tells us that it took place in June. That is totally recently, it's so fresh. It tells us that now this is the first time in the history of humanity when there is the war ongoing between the inhumane, but we, the Ukrainians, have the experience of the real war. That is why we can speak about that. And also this text, and in this positioning, in the curator's statement, we can find some criticism of such a boom of patriotic film production in Ukraine. So they selected the films and the video works which are much more marginalized, which have been done not for the public or state money, but with their own grants or own resources, and the majority of those works have been always available online. They circulated online because this was the natural environment for them. But several video works got an opportunity to be shown online for the first time. Those were their first nights, and there were such artists as Dana Kavelina presented here. Her work was presented there for the first time. Daniil Rivkovsky and Andriy Rachinsky presented their works, and also Pavlo Yurov, Katya Lipkind, May Malashchuk, and lots of other Ukrainian authors could be watched there. And this platform was, first of all, for the international community. It's in English. There was a short comment about the work and the biography of the artist where you could watch it. But if you analyze the whole approach, this was a kind of a selection of the videos with the text which directs you, explains how they are connected and united. It's a kind of a white club, efflux, but it is done online. It's a gallery. In this case, we can name it as an exhibition, which on its own doesn't have any statement, because it's just an information resource. It provides the opportunity and the place and the resource, the space and the audience to give the voice, to provide the voice to this or that phenomenon. And also, I'd like to drive your attention to the project of the British Council, which also took place recently. This is the online exhibition, which has the name Almost There. This exhibition is working mostly with the collection of the British Council. The British Council has a huge collection, which is rather valuable, of the world art. But why did they make their mind to create it online even before the pandemic? Because when they calculated how much it costs to bring and then to ensure the works into this or that country, and the focus was on Ukraine and Turkey, they found out that their budget is not capable to pay for all of that. So they, first and foremost, invented it as an online exhibition. They conducted an open competition for curators. They invited curators from Turkey, from Georgia, and from the competition of Ukraine, Tatiana Kuchubinska was the winner. So here you can see the screen of the beginning of the exhibition, how it begins, with the open window where you can select a language. I'd like to drive your attention at this exhibition onto the inclusion of its form, because it's rather important even online, as accessibility is also in the digital products has certain meaning as well and needs additional effort spent. So this exhibition is curated by 3 curators. The main object is the collection of the British Council, and each of the curators invited artists with whom he or she is working from their own country. And this is how the exposition looks like. It is created in a non-linear way. It is done along the spiral, and the connections between the works are also thought through, both in the physical space and here. But they are differently constructed. They have used this tool online. They did not create any imitation of the gallery halls or museum halls. They used the whole potential, maybe not the whole, but still the potential of the online products. And they did it as a spiral. So you can scroll and move through the works in a different way. Each viewer forms his and her own history out of the selection of works which are offered. Each work, here we can see the work of Anna Zvyagintsev. Each work, when you choose it, it is open for the full screen. If it's a video, you can watch the video, you can watch something related, or something which has to be aside this work. You can read the description of the work, the description and the curator's comment. All of them were developed especially for this exhibition, which explains the role of this work within the exhibition, shifts the focus, how you need it for the story narrated by this exhibition. And here I'd like to drive your attention to the upper part of the screen. Here you have the opportunity of different additional inclusion bonuses. You can change the font, you can come to sign languages, and so this inclusion is a rarity for the Ukrainian segment, but I do appeal for all of you, use it. And there are special agencies which can adapt the websites to have the inclusive design. It doesn't cost that much. So I do appeal for you, if we use it online, let it be more accessible. As from time to time, it's not that easy not to create the stairs or an accessible entrance, but it is much easier to do that online. And now we're coming to the SHUKHLIADA project. SHUKHLIADA is a kind of a project which is achieved the surface now more. So that is why I was invited to tell about it this year, exactly, because online exposition environment, SHUKHLIADA is not an online gallery, it's not a virtual space. SHUKHLIADA is an exposition environment, something which forms an opportunity, shapes the situation where the virtual gallery can emerge, or online exhibition as well. So here you can see the set of screenshots of various exhibitions which took place here, and I will dwell upon two of them. The one which I curated of Yaroslav Futymsky, and the one which I curated as well of Oleksiy, but which is now the current exhibition. I will begin with where SHUKHLIADA came from, who was the founder. It has been founded by three artists. Here you can see I'm showing you a kind of a first opening for SHUKHLIADA. When you get there, it explains that you need to clean your cache, and then I will explain you where we took this phrase from. Those three artists whom you see here is Max Robotov, Svitlychnyi, and Lera Polianskova. They used to have their art center in Kharkiv. We had the name of TETS. It's the bottom-to-top initiative. It was self-organized, but then they were just taken from that because it was half-squat center. They were just taken out there, and they just ordered them to leave it up till the end of the day. So then they began to think that in the place where they do art, they don't have enough of resources and institutions in the city with whom they could collaborate, because there are certain people, there are ideas, there is the wish, but there is no space for it. So this crisis, this lack, brought to the creation of SHUKHLIADA. SHUKHLIADA grew up as an idea. So why is the name SHUKHLIADA, the drawer? Because the artists have something in the drawer, in SHUKHLIADA, some idea which is awaiting for an opportunity to be implemented. As to implement the idea, you need the space where the implementation of this idea can just suit. You need money and the resources for the production, for the adequate production, which would be adequate for the idea, and the institution, the crisis of the space, of the institution, of the production. Those three crises brought to the situation when those artists decided to create SHUKHLIADA. They invented it in the freer space, that is online. But the way how they invented it in 2013, and it should have been the online video panorama 360, was not allowed by online browsers of those times. That is why this gallery was opened in 2018. They need IT guys and technologies for that, and as soon as they opened it, it was done only in Chrome browser with a cleaned browser and cache, and now it's totally accessible even in the cell phones. So finally technologies caught up with SHUKHLIADA. But as for the functions of SHUKHLIADA, those artists, are not the founders, they are not the curators of this space. From time to time they do curate, they invite other curators and artists, and even the artists whom they never knew before. This is how they got acquainted with Yaroslav Futymsky when they got prepared for their exhibition, which we created together. And this is the exhibition which I will tell you about, and then I will show you. It's a rather small one. It's the documentation of the video performance of Yaroslav Futymsky, who has the name "Who are all those people who saw the same landscape?" It has been created specially for this space. It's a site-specific performance created for SHUKHLIADA. This work, well, I will tell about the work itself, for you to understand what was the experiment. what the curator's approach was in this work, why we needed Futymsky to be shown in SHUKHLIADA, not just to hand on the plasma screen in the gallery.
This piece was shot in Polinka, Minsk region, where he was working in archive. This is his hometown, and he found a proof that in 1905, workers of the paper factory that still works there tried to get together and organized a protest. So this was the beginning of the workers' movement. They got together at the outskirts of the town on this piece of rock, which back then was not in water. And they got together there to start this workers' movement. This attempt was suppressed by the government. And this landscape therefore became political. It is marked politically for us now as something historical, because when we came to shoot that performance, we had to ask local fishers to go away from this place because they had no idea what happened there in the past and what meaning it may have. And this is why we see the question on this slide. Who are all these people who saw this landscape? The artist is standing on the piece of rock and wondering whether it is possible to have movements like that today. What would have changed if that movement was a success? His hand is covered with a special material and it is on fire. Let us take a look at this video performance. See? It looks very poetical. It looks frozen. And this matter of political landscape, the question is, can you ask questions like that online? Online, that was created for everybody, including for the internationals, for everybody who can visit this website. And the thing is that if you know what Yaroslav Futymsky created in the past, this artist is very analog one. He works with ready-mades, he produces and finalizes all of his works on his own. They seem to be very tangible. You feel like willing to touch them. And for me, as a curator of this project, the question was, will this poetic component stay in the online environment, which seems to be quite cold, colorless? To go there, you don't have to be prepared, because when you go to physical exhibition, you're going to a venue, you're thinking about an artist, you're thinking about a topic, about the gallery, you're thinking about who you may meet there. And if we're talking about online exhibition, you simply click the link and you immediately are immersed in it as deep as possible, or as deep as you want to. You get immersed into the topic. And this conflict of anthological and perceptional, what is conveyed by this piece and how it can influence human being, how it can be perceived by the human being. For me, as the curator, this is what this piece is about. And this chilly virtual reality, and at the presentation you could look at it using VR glasses. Even those who had them at home could look at it in VR. Still, I could feel this poetry. It was not killed even in the virtual environment. And also I would like to tell you about the exhibition that is currently ongoing with Oleksiy. It is called Control Freak. And this exhibition was created together with SHUKHLIADA's team, with the artist during the lockdown. We all stayed at our place, and by the end of the lockdown, all of the people working in the cultural domain were really fatigued. And we were implementing it technically in the course of lockdown. How did it work? Ivan Svitlychnyi was stuck in his residence in Warsaw. Lera in Kiev in her apartment, and Max in his apartment, and me in my apartment, not far from Kiev. And Oleksiy was in touch with us from his workshop. So now on the left you can see a picture taken at the residency in Poland by Ivan Svitlychnyi, and this is where this physical component was implemented, because SHUKHLIADA consists of three components: material world, physical work, an item, a virtual world. This is how it exists in an online environment, as well as viewers' experience, their perception. And every exhibition comprises these three elements. Even though it is completely digital, still physically it is happening in SHUKHLIADA. You see Ivan Svitlychnyi diving into SHUKHLIADA in the course of editing. He printed out works by Oleksiy in small size, and as you can see on the door of his residence in Poland, there was a sticker of SHUKHLIADA. SHUKHLIADA moved there temporarily, and in a small format he was printing out small items, recreating this exposition, which later, with the help of video cameras and lots of other technical means, which I don't understand that much, they created this exhibition. And the essence of this exhibition here is Oleksiy. You see a bit of an exposition. This exhibition is a retrospective one. And it is already ironical, because we understand that retrospective exhibitions by the artists are normally done according to certain dates in special artist halls, and we are trying to be ironical about it. We're working with the statement that he's a digital artist. Of course, it is not like that. Of course, he's famous for what he did in Excel, but the majority of his pieces were created in site-specific, for a specific place, for a specific situation. And normally they require a lot of work. They are very time-consuming, and they are quite large. And here, an artist, as if sends all of his creations online for the viewer. And why was it called Control Freak? Because it was created during the lockdown, when this anxiety and feeling of the changes, the feeling of the standards and norms of communication changing, our codes changing, science changing, and our neural state also changing. This control freak is the feeling of you losing control, that you cannot control everything as you used to. And this is what the exhibition is about. And in the first place, it works with the viewer's experience. You, as if get into this virtual space, it seems that you have the white walls where you see artworks, but you cannot come closer to them. You cannot look at them in a linear way, one by one. You cannot read descriptions as the people are used to doing in the museums, because when you're trying to look closer at something, you're being taken to some endless space of this wide gallery cubicles and the doors between them. And this feeling, well, I think that this also conveys how an artist feels with all this burden of everything they created in the past, all of their artworks, how they leap to the future with all of that, and how it all happens and what's going to happen next. This question of what's going to happen next is also very often omnipresent in online exhibitions, because very often, if we're using some modern technology, everybody thinking what's going to happen next. If there are some new technologies, probably they will help us to understand what the future will look like. And now I suggest we look at a fragment of this exhibition, because you can look at the whole exhibition now at shukhliada.com. and you can look at it using any of your gadgets. I'd like to show you one fragment so that you understand what I was talking about. And this will sum up my presentation. And if you have some questions, I'll answer them.
Ті, хто знають,
Those who know pieces by Psy, they will recognize lots of the things that feel like his signature. And the music for this exhibition was created by Vasil Psy.
On and on and on and on and on and on. Running to King Stupid.
тут ми бачимо зараз
Here now we can see his famous Excel series,
які він
which took him a lot of time because he is doing things manually, whether it is something like that or some large sculptures.
для створення.
And to create these artworks, he used Excel tables of budgets, which he asked his colleagues working for corporations to provide him with, because he's working with the topic hero of our times, a person who works for a large corporation, and he tries to analyze how this corporate culture is changing and developing. And this is what this Excel series are mainly dedicated to, because they are very various.
Насправді, коли ви самі
In fact, when you will be looking at this exhibition, you will be able to somewhat control these movements, but not to the full extent. Because during every SHUKHLIADA's exhibition, in every exposition, in one or another way, there is also some institutional criticism. So if we look at it from such perspective, here we criticize how the institution treats the viewer, or vice versa, how the viewer treats what they're looking at. And this is quite an aggressive approach. Control of what you're looking at is fully in the hands of an institution.
якщо казати про роботу
Talking about Futymsky work, what is institutional criticism there? Here the focus mainly was on studying how can you, without any flaws, focus on performance? How can you document it? How can you archive it? And here you can see fragments of a skeleton, how this exposition is connected to one each other, and you can see everything from within. And this is a hell where corporate workers are burning. This was a physical installation at Mistetsky Arsenal during the Space Odyssey, which was created by Alexander Solovyov.
Still burn on and on and on and on. And then shout, young men shirt. Young men have it.
загалом
Overall, it takes about 20 minutes to look through the whole exhibition, but we're not gonna spend 20 minutes looking at it. This will be more of a teaser. I highly recommend you looking at the whole exhibition on SHUKHLIADA's website.
Still burn on and 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 on.
там також є
There on the website you can also see the tags for each of the series, but they also are put together in a way that makes it hard to read them. So there is a concept that goes at the thread through the whole exhibition. Here it seems that everything's fine, but it's just the first impression.
Ну, я думаю, що ми
Well, I think we can turn off the video, and I'm not gonna spoil what happens next. So please go to the website, take a look at it. Ksenia, thank you. Thank you for your lecture. It was very interesting to find out more about how an exhibition project can function online. And I have a question. And the art switched online, does it lose its characteristics? Something that we appreciate about the art when we come to a gallery and we feel certain physical presence. What do we do with this lack of presence, and how does it impact the perception of the viewer? I think that in one or another way we'll have to love art for something else aside from this physical presence. Of course, you cannot substitute it, and many exhibitions switched online. And if we're talking about Venice Biennale, how can you imagine that online? For professional community, that is impossible, because it happens once every 2 years when everybody for whom it is important go to Venice. Because this cannot be substituted by an email, Zoom, or anything else. I think that the visitors will have to think more about the meaning of art, read more text, and dive deeper to the essence, to the core of the art, and follow the clues that the author leaves for us. I think that there will be no substitute for a long time to the physical perception of the art, because we see that there are different advantages, as you have mentioned, which is availability, inclusion, and larger size, decreased budgets. But you're losing something, and even despite a very beautiful exhibition about Frida Kahlo, us not being able to see that physically is somewhat, we cannot substitute that. We're living in quite interesting time. That was the topic of our first lecture dedicated to media art this year. So far, we don't have any questions from our viewers. That is why I believe we can wrap up our today's lecture. Ksenia, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. And then we'll see you next year. Thank you for having joined us. Thank you for listening to lectures about media art, and not only to lectures on this topic. See you next year. Bye-bye.